Welcome to 11 Yards Podcast. My name is Anthony Wayner of Legit Football, producer of 30 Minutes of Football, and I'm joined by Jimmy Ray of @NFL_stats on Twitter, where we talk numbers and stats and all things football. Jimmy, how are you doing? Ready to talk some football?
Doing pretty good. I'm feeling thankful this week
Good.
for certain reasons and stuff. Not for the Colts specifically, but as a whole for football, more football on Thursday and on Sunday. So yeah, I'm ready to talk some Thanksgiving and stats and stuff.
Sounds good. Today is a special Thanksgiving episode. I'm excited to welcome Brian McFadden at _legitfootball, legitfootball.com and he is the host of 30 Minutes of Football and the co-owner of Legit Football. How are you doing, Brian?
I'm supposed to be off today, but I rolled out of bed to do this Thanksgiving episode with these fine gentlemen. I mean, at the end of the day, any excuse I have to talk football on camera, off camera, it doesn't matter to me. I'm excited to not be hosting, Anthony. This is your show. I'm just here for the ride. Let's go.
Sounds good. And then I have a Bills fan here, a close friend of mine, Kevin Phillip Fox of @TheBuffaloTrill on Twitter. How you doing, Kevin?
Dude, first of all, thank you for having me on. I'm super jazzed to be here. I love talking football. I did not know that I was going to be hit with such a spicy intro theme there. That kind of got me going a little bit. Very ready to talk.
Anthony's known for it. He writes the hot intros. He gets you in the mood.
That's spicy. That's a spicy intro. I'm so ready to talk football, guys. So thank you for having me on.
I got to say, too, Kevin, bonus points for having three names, like Kevin Phillip Fox. That just makes you more credible in my mind. So, like,
dude, I appreciate
bring it.
I'm an actor. That's the actor thing, right? You have to have three names to be a credible actor.
It sounds legit, man. You're on brand. I like it.
We're crushing it so far. I love it.
So tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and 6 teams are going to battle it out, and we are here to talk about it. So let's get started. So first, like I start every episode, we're going to talk about the last week. Just skim through it real fast because I really want to get into the Thanksgiving games. But we have some weekers from this week. So I'm just going to put my screen up. Joe Burrow led the league this week, winning 37-30 at Pittsburgh with 355 yards and 4 touchdowns. We don't have to get too into it. Joe Burrow, without Jamar Chase, he's still producing. What do you guys think?
Well, this Bengals, they got so many weapons. They may be at their peak with Jamar Chase, but you still have T. Higgins. I think he had, 11 catches for like 130-something yards. They couldn't slow him down. He got injured, came back in the game, didn't matter. You still have Tyler Boyd, who's been there since before all these guys, still putting up numbers, one of the best slot receivers in the NFL. Hayden Hurst has been a great tight end. You still have Joe Mixon, who went out of this game. Samaje Perine came in, didn't matter. He scored 3 touchdowns. They're just stacked across the board. The big concern there is offensive line didn't matter in this game. Burrow is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL and continues to prove that.
I also think there's something to be said for the fact that they surrendered 30 points to a Kenny Pickett-led team. You know, no disrespect. Steelers have a lot of weapons, but the sleeping giant Najee Harris might finally be emerging, which is exciting because I know a lot of people had a lot of stake in him in fantasy football. I'm not one of those people, not to brag, but it kind of seems like, I don't know, do you guys glean anything from that, from a 30-point performance from Pittsburgh?
He's definitely playing a catch-up role at this point because of the defense allowing 30 points. And so Joe Burrow has to ball it out and score, which he can do, but that's how they lost the Super Bowl. So I see that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also with you, Kevin. I don't have any Najee shares proudly.
Couldn't do it.
He's doing a little bit better. I think a lot of that is because he's getting healthy, but they really like the rookie Jalen Warren. The Steelers' offense in general, like you said, they're better under Pickett than they were under Trubisky, but there's not a lot to like. But let's not jump off the Joe Burrow train. He's number 1 in pass yards for a reason. This Bengals team has got to be at least in consideration as a Super Bowl contender when they're at their best.
All right, let's get through this now. Rushing leaders, Josh Jacobs led this week with his win against Denver, 22-16, 109 yards with 24 carries, 4.5 average, and 0 touchdowns. We don't have to get too into it. Josh Jacobs has been producing pretty well. If you have him on fantasy, you're a lucky person because he's very productive every week. And then speaking of Najee Harris, he has 2 touchdowns. So maybe we can put him up on that list because he's gotten to the end zone twice. Josh Jacobs didn't get in once. So we'll talk about that.
I have a comment, and I want to hear Jimmy's take on this as our resident stats guru.
Yeah.
this is a year that, compared to others, has been very run heavy, right? It's actually kind of an interesting, not regression, but it's been so pass heavy for years now. A lot more offense is going more run heavy. Maybe that's due to a lot of the too high coverage shells you're seeing to kind of limit the big plays. But it's interesting that this week we only had 2 rushers go over 100 yards, and they really barely did that, with Jacobs at 109 and Pacheco at 107. Any thoughts on that? Do we think it's just now we're going back to pass heavy at the end of the season, or is this just a 1 week blip?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I feel like at one point there were a lot of teams that only had like 3 points in the game so far. But I mean, I think it's just important to be efficient in the running game and then get your passing game going when you need to be. As you see, Isaiah Pacheco had 7 yards per carry, and Derrick Henry, he had 28 attempts. Josh Jacobs 24 attempts. So I think if you can get the running game going and you're efficient, you can just keep barreling down. And I think teams are learning that as we progress throughout the seasons. And will it be a staple throughout the season? No, I think passing game is still a tad more important, but I think it's interesting to note.
Cool. And for sure. And speaking of passing, we can move on to the receiving leaders, which was T. Higgins, no surprise, 37-30 at Pittsburgh. Joe Burrow's number 1 at quarterback, 9 receptions for 148 yards, 16.4 average, 0 touchdowns. I'd say we should put Devontae Adams up top because he's only 7 yards less, 2 touchdowns. So I might want to move him there. But Higgins,
one of these things is not like the other.
Marcus,
one of these
That's
5
right.
guys. Good for him. I guess he's wide receiver 1 in Baltimore now, but I almost played him in DFS. I was looking at. I'm always trying to find that one value play, and I'm like, Demarcus Robinson. No, I'll pass. But hey, maybe he's somewhat a thing in the Baltimore offense that doesn't have many weapons outside of Mark Andrews.
And
Yeah,
we got
Demarcus Robinson, he's really interesting because I remember when Bateman first got hurt and the couple games leading up to it, he was starting to get a little bit more run in the offense and starting to get some targets. And I thought he was an interesting flyer, even back then. But I'm really intrigued by Demarcus Robinson right now. I mean, I think we've seen him kind of be pretty great in Kansas City's system. I know he got forgotten a lot. He was, among like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. But I think it's at least something to monitor Demarcus Robinson moving forward as like maybe establishing himself into that next tier of receiver. And it's so funny because Brian, when you said one of these things is not like the other, there's a couple of things because Kelsey's a tight end and he's always in that 5, right? He could always be a considered weekly leader, especially if you go by touchdowns. I mean, that dude, I know this is, maybe a little heady, but is he the greatest tight end of all time? Like, can we say that safely?
Mr.
it's
Gronkowski might have something
You
to say
got
about
Gronk.
that. Tony Gonzalez, but Shannon Sharp even. But here's the thing. Here's an interesting that Kelsey and Jimmy would know once again. Stats Guru. I'm pretty sure he just tied his career single season record for touchdowns with 11.
Yeah, 11. Yeah, 11
And he's-
touchdowns
And it's week 11 or going into
That's
week 12.
Crazy.
One more touchdown and he's what 33? It's like wow. I
He's
did
close
not
to the NFL record.
I did not draft Kelsey because I'm like, he's got to fall down at some point. Man, I was dead wrong about that. I'm regretting drafting Kyle Pitts in multiple leagues. Wish I'd have taken Kelsey instead. Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I also saw a stat. The difference for fantasy points wise from wide receiver 1 to wide receiver 2, or tight end 1, tight end 2, is the same difference from tight end 2 to tight end like 33 or something.
31.
Like that.
Yeah.
I saw that too.
31.
That's crazy.
So, Travis Kelce he'll be the tight end 1 until he decides not to be, I guess.
Yeah, and just so Anthony, should I also bring up that Amari Cooper did that against Buffalo? That's kind of crazy, right?
Yeah, and we weren't expecting, but their secondary has a lot of issues going on.
That's
right
their
now,
biggest
so.
weakness from injury, but also how they've been able to limit teams in the pass game has been primarily through the pass rush. And the fact that they've been up, I actually predicted that Cleveland would do a lot through the air. I played Donovan Peoples-Jones in most of my DFS lineups. Wish I would have also played Cooper or played Cooper instead because Cooper did even
Who would have
better.
thought?
But
Yeah.
DPJ had a touchdown. That's the one place we can talk about when we go into the Thanksgiving preview. The one
There
place
you
you can
go.
really attack them is through the secondary because they're not as good. They're starting, Kyer Elam has been starting a lot of games as a rookie and he's a little banged up. Dane Jackson.
Yeah.
They been without their two top safeties for most of the games. Jordan Poyer came back last week. Anyway, we can save that for the preview.
Right,
I'm getting
right.
excited. I'm getting excited
Yeah,
for
Me
Thanksgiving.
too. All right, let's just skim through defensive leaders because I can already smell the turkey and I'm getting hungry. So, Nick Bolton, linebacker, with his win 30-27 at the Chargers with 14 total tackles. That's 10 solo tackles and 4 assists. We don't have to dive too deep on that. So, who wants to get into it?
I'm a big fan of PFF specifically when it comes to defensive grades because simply getting the most tackles is actually not the greatest sign of how well you're playing. Now, I think Bolton played great, and he actually graded really well. I believe he graded around 85. But
Whoa.
that
There you
that
go.
that could be the right, exactly, and these are the reasons why he graded well. But we sorted this by tackles, so I want to start off commenting by tackles. That could be a result of like the players are getting to the second level. Your defensive line isn't playing one. You're just there to clean it up. It can also be, just being heady and having nose for the football and all that. And it's not something you throw out, but it's kind of the same as, at least in the same realm as sacks allowed. Like you can be a pretty average or even bad offensive lineman who doesn't allow any sacks because you got Patrick Mahomes behind you and he finds ways or Lamar. It doesn't mean you aren't getting beat on most of your snaps. So that's just my personal thing. I don't like to look at tackles in particular. I'd rather look at forced fumbles, interceptions. Those are important. Forced fumbles in particular because that does take a bit of skill usually. Or how many QB pressures you get as an edge rusher versus how many sacks you get. Sorry, I'm dumping on your stats here, Anthony. I'll shut up.
No problem. All right, so
I will say, having been at the one of the crazy Bills Mafia who took the trek to Detroit for the Bills-Browns game, watching that game with my eyes, I see Terrell Dodson is in this five-pack here. I have to be honest. He was not the second best linebacker in the league or even close. He had a bad game. He got picked on. He was making a lot of his tackles in coverage when people burned him. And Matt Milano in that same game, AFC Defensive Player of the Week, just announced this morning, out here just being a stud. And I think he had 12 tackles, but that's the perfect dichotomy of the tackle argument, right, Brian? Because you can have 12 tackles, impact the crap out of the game, bunch of tackles for losses, bunch of pressures, all those fun things. And you can also be having a lot of tackles because you're getting picked on and because you're getting victimized,
Here's a fun plug for the All 22 Fantasy League because I have both Nick Bolton, who I didn't start, and Matt Milano, and I am now 8-3 with the most points in our league, having beat Jimmy last week to take over.
Let's go
the division. So
we'll see how it goes.
Just digging that in there, Jimmy. No.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'm 7-4, and I think we'll have a pretty good matchup heading into the playoffs. Whenever we'll
have to do a special episode. We'll have Pro Football Demon on too, because he just beat Denver Bruce, who was first in the other division. Anyway, I digress.
Isn't Anthony in the league too?
Anthony, he's like worse. He's in last. I didn't want to bring it up because I knew we didn't.
I had to.
Yeah.
Just asking a question. I didn't. Yeah.
We're gonna dunk on his Lions a lot today. I didn't want to dunk on his All 22 fantasy team also. So, but Jimmy's like, let's go scorched earth.
I'm used to it. Losing is in my blood. So let's get started with the Thanksgiving games. So we're going to start with Buffalo Bills and Detroit Lions. But before I start that, the Buffalo Bills are kind of the home team on Thursday because they never left. And the Lions just traveled from New York.
I heard they did. I heard they actually did go back briefly.
They did.
Kevin, you might know that.
Did
they go back?
They circled around. I don't know if you guys heard, but this is a little plug for Sean McDermott here. They gave him the option to pick the home or visitor bench for the last game. And he chose the visitor bench because he wanted to get the guys comfortable where they were going to be playing in 4 days.
The football guy.
I just love stuff like that. That to me, that's just good coaching. Cool. And they did. They left for 2 days. I think they're already back.
Okay. Anyway, so the Buffalo Bills organization issued a statement, and this is what it was. The Buffalo Bills would like to express their sincere thanks to the Lions organization. In the span of a few hours, Detroit opened its doors and came together quickly to ensure the Bills could host their home game on Sunday after parts of western New York faced snow accumulations of more than 80 inches. We can't thank the Lions organization enough for their efforts this past weekend. Ron Rakuya, am I saying that right?
That's correct.
Buffalo's executive vice president and chief operating officer said it was no small feat to pull that game off, and each and every line staff member was first class throughout. Buffalo was ecstatic over how welcoming and accommodating the Lions organization was, with their ability to make us feel at home. The organization did a countless number of things to make sure the game could be played on time, and it does not go unnoticed. To express our gratitude, the Bills Foundation is donating $20,000 to the Lions Foundation. We would also love Bills Mafia to follow our lead and donate to the Lions, who did so much for us over the last few days.
It's awesome.
It's a beautiful thing, football.
Good stuff.
Yes,
Yes,
it
it
is.
is. Yes, it is.
So, enough about donations.
Quick mention, one additional thing on that I just learned this morning. So one of the guys that helped dig out Josh Allen's driveway, his name is Squirrel. Like, shout out to upstate New York.
Squirrel Winters.
Squirrel
He's a hero.
Winters. I mean,
Squirrel
that guy,
Winters?
if that is his parent given name, which I wouldn't rule out, coming from
Squirrel,
the
yeah.
Orchard Park, Buffalo area, that's legendary right there.
He's
That guy
a
deserves
hero.
a Super Bowl ring if Buffalo wins, just saying.
Couldn't
for
agree
sure.
more. And I can speak to the experience because I was actually in New York to go to that game because, I'm LA based. But having been in New York and then last minute getting the word that it was changing, I had to look within myself like, okay, am I really about to get into a car and drive 6 hours to Detroit through a snowstorm? And I didn't have to think that hard. I didn't have to question that much. Of course I did.
Of course.
Knowing that Anthony's a huge Lions fan, it was really fun to get to talk to him and his brother about like, where do I park? Like, how's Ford Field? Like, and it just touches on the community aspect of football and walking around. There was a good chunk of Browns fans there. I would say it's probably 70% Bills fans, probably 15% Browns fans, and then 15% Lions fans, which was so cool because when they showed Jamal Williams' third rushing touchdown on the Jumbotron, the crowd erupted. And I was like, that's just cool. That's just exciting. But it was an amazing experience. And I'm glad you touched on it, Anthony, because it's the kind of things that football does for people that I think people should shed more of a light on.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree. So speaking of the Bills and Lions, they play at 9:30 a.m. tomorrow morning, 12:30 for the people on the East.
Most people start, even me, I start with the East Coast time.
I know. I didn't,
even though I'm in California, and it's like, no.
Yeah, I was so confused. I was like, do I have to get up early? And I was like, no.
You can sleep in. It's us
Thank you.
that get up early to watch this game. Yeah.
So every year on Thanksgiving, the Detroit Lions play football. Before we started, we were talking about the actual Thanksgiving record, and here it is. Across 82 Thanksgiving matchups, the franchise Detroit Lions have built a 37-43-2 record.
That's not that bad.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
That's
It
a lot
doesn't
better than I
sound
thought it
bad.
was going to be.
That's
I-
probably
I-
a lot of wins in the 50s and 60s. So
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. I saw something. They've played at home on every Thanksgiving since 1934, except for the World War II years. So, but they
Oh,
haven't.
Wow.
So they've obviously you see that record. You see how many games they've played. So obviously back in the day they got some wins on Thanksgiving, but they haven't won since 2016. I believe.
Wow. That's a fun stat. Did not know that.
Yeah, it is.
It's fascinating.
All right, so let's pull up some more stats here for the Lions-Bills preview. Here we are. Here's the matchup right here. Here's top players here. We got passing yards. Josh Allen with 2,930 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions versus Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions with 2,442 yards, 15 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Rushing yards was Josh Allen actually leads with 71 carries, 483 yards, and 4 touchdowns, and Jamal Williams, 668 yards and 12 touchdowns, who's actually the current touchdown leader in the league. Receiving yards, Stephon Diggs, 1,033 yards, 8 touchdowns, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, 594 yards and 3 touchdowns.
So I want to mention, the last week, the Bills, and this is very important for this game and the Bills' success going forward, Josh Allen didn't have to run the ball much. They really committed to using Devin Singletary and James Cook. Shout out to James Cook having his best game of the year. He looked speedy and explosive, a little bit like his older brother. That's something to keep an eye on in this game because the first half, and I know, Kevin, obviously you watched the game closely as a Bills fan, Josh Allen looked off. Like I watch all the games, but there's certain games I highlight. I highlighted and had on my big screen the Bills Browns game because I wanted to see. The Bills have had their issues lately, and the first half they did not look good at all. The defense, Cleveland went up and down the field on them, but more importantly, Josh Allen was inaccurate. He was missing passes. But then they started to get the run game going, and maybe it's a halftime adjustment. Maybe it's because Josh Allen felt a little bit less pressure, but he looked much sharper in the second half. He actually started hitting his receivers, and then the Bills got the lead and didn't look back. Can they replicate that? I think you have to find a way to give Josh Allen some support so that he doesn't, even though he's capable of doing it all, if he doesn't feel like he has to do it all, because the games that they've lost, for the most part, he's played well. He just makes mistakes in the red zone, which are about as big of mistakes as you can make, because I think he's trying to do too much. If he doesn't feel so much pressure, that's huge for the Bills this week and going forward.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about, any Buffalo Bills game, unless you're playing pretty much the Kansas City Chiefs, I think that game starts and ends with Josh Allen. I don't think there's any player on the field who's as impactful as Josh Allen. And that is, I would say, 85% of the time a great thing. But that 15% of the time, man, when that rookie year, Wyoming, Josh, that's what they call him. I personally, he can be a liability when he gets in his head or when he gets a little too aggressive. He's trying to make the big play. And I respect it. At the end of the day, you don't get those highlight reel plays without having that Brett Favre in you, just that gunslinger in you. Like, I have to make this play. It doesn't matter. And, I respect it to an extent, but also, yeah, like you were saying, it can be a liability at times, especially in the red zone. And yes, that game, pretty bad to start the game, pretty off. I'm a little nervous about his elbow, to tell you the truth. I'm not entirely certain. I don't have any insider information to say that that's something that's actually concerning or not, but it's definitely something worth monitoring. And correct, if they can take the pressure off him with a run game, Devin Singletary, 86 yards, James Cook, 86 yards, that is pretty much all Bills fans have been clamoring for years, because we don't like seeing our quarterback take massive hits. It fires us up, but it's definitely not something it's not sustainable.
They'll jump through tables, but they don't want their quarterback hitting their defenders hard.
That's exactly right.
There's a boundary there. There's a boundary.
So the spread on this game is 9.5. And the Bills are obviously favored. So how do you feel about that spread? Because the Lions just won 3 in a row against a winning team with the Giants and 2 division rivals. Do they actually stand a chance, or is 9.5 reasonable?
I think it's a reasonable expectation. I think looking at it, I have a tough deciding, because I feel like the Lions can put up a lot of points when they want to. I think the Bills, obviously, they can go with the pass or the run against the Lions, and they should be able to get some sort of yardage and some sort of points. So that's not really the issue here. It's just, can the Lions come up? Because if the Bills do pass a lot, then that stops the clock a lot, and the Lions get a chance to come back and score some points if they need to. And the Lions can throw down the field and get Jamal Williams involved like he has in the past. So I feel like it's a hard decision. I think I would lean towards the Bills scoring, beating the Lions by 10 or more, but I wouldn't be against somebody choosing the opposite.
Yeah, Detroit is actually, surprisingly, even though they have on the season one of the worst rush defenses, they've actually played really, really good run defense over the past few weeks. We just saw them completely shut down Saquon. I think he had something like 20-something yards. I think that's going a little bit under the radar. But how that reflects on this game is they also are they still are really susceptible in the secondary, and I believe their top corner, Jeff Okudah, is in concussion protocol.
Yes.
Correct. So if he misses, that's huge. So I could see this end up being one of those games where Allen just kind of slings it. And I do think Detroit plays it close early on, kind of like Cleveland does last week. But if it comes down to who's doing better in the pass game, I don't know that I wouldn't take Buffalo to cover that 9.5 and just win by 10 points. It's not a slam dunk in my book. I think this point spread is actually pretty smart, because it's not. I have to actually give it some thought. If this was week 4, I'd be like, smash it. I would do plus 16 Buffalo. Yeah. Now, with the way Detroit's playing, there's something to be said about this team coming together. Their defense is playing much better. Their offense is still able to move the ball. Here's something to keep an eye on. So with PFF, they track big-time throws. They track turnover-worthy plays. This game features the 2 quarterbacks who are 1 and 2 in turnover-worthy plays. As crazy as that is, Josh Allen and Jared Goff. Goff's number 1. Josh Allen's number 2. So it could just come down to the fact of which of these quarterbacks, which they're prone to do at least a few times every game, actually makes the mistake that the other team capitalizes on. If you look back to that Dolphins-Bills game, and by the way, Kevin, I'm a Dolphins fan. I guess we should say that up front. Not sure if you knew that.
Okay. There
he's
you
like,
go.
I'm off the show.
No.
Forget it.
no.
See ya.
I
No,
in the chat.
But in that, I don't think Josh Allen had any interceptions, but he had like 5 turnover-worthy plays. The Dolphins just weren't able to capitalize on it. Luckily for me, the Miami still ended up winning. So can Detroit capitalize on those mistakes that Josh Allen tends to at least make, 2 or 3 times a game? And the same with Jared Goff. Who's going to make those mistakes? Who's going to capitalize on it? That could be the difference between actually covering that spread and not.
Local Monkey Sports made a comment. I really want the Lions to win this game, but I just can't see them doing it. And by the way, we are. I mean, how are all of you? Because I'm doing fantastic.
Couldn't
It's
be
lovely.
better.
Lovely.
Talking
We're talking
football.
football on a Wednesday. We got Loco
Chopping it
Monkey
up.
popping in the chat. We got
50 degrees in
Colts,
Indiana.
Lions, Bills, and Dolphins represented here. Life is good, gentlemen.
Doesn't
Yeah,
get
and it's
better.
50 degrees in Indiana, so that's a blessing.
Is that a good
in this
thing?
time of year.
That's a
That's
good thing, right?
51 degrees
okay.
is very good. I'll go on a nice walk later. I'll enjoy myself. Have a great day
Yeah,
outside.
beautiful.
Here's something crazy. In the Bay Area, it's 49 right now. It's not going to stay there. It's going to get up to like 70, but it's 49. But Jimmy in Indianapolis is warmer than I am right now. That's why I got the hoodie on.
Feels good.
I will say I have a couple things. I'm glad that you brought up that Okuda is going to be out because I think that we all know about Buffalo's passing attack. That's not a drum that I'll have to bang too hard. But I think that after last week with Stephon Diggs only receiving 1 target in the first half, I wouldn't be surprised if Ken Dorsey and Josh Allen came out and hyper-targeted Stephon Diggs just to prove a point.
We saw it in the second half. He was talking to
it was-
McDermott. Everything was
beautiful.
cool. And then they started targeting Diggs repeatedly.
It was a beautiful thing because I think the offense and the team, I think it's Josh Allen, it's Steph Diggs. They're the 1-2 punch. They're the organizational pillars, And so I would love to see Steph Diggs take advantage of some of those lesser known, lesser effective Detroit corners. Gabe Davis, I have a love-hate relationship with Gabe Davis. I think he's such a stud. I think he can be one of the best receivers in the NFL. He can put up those stats, but he has some issues, I think, technically, maybe in terms of fundamentals that he's got to work through. The drops are just unbelievable. I'm not sure, Jimmy, if you have drop percentage, I'm pretty sure on Gabe's targets, he drops an astonishing number of his targets.
Yeah, not off the
You
top
can
of my
see it
head.
in the games. You can see it. That I feel like I have Gabe Davis on one of my fantasy teams. I was high on him going into the season. I have Josh Allen on that same league, so I got the stack. And yeah, I feel like he has at least 2 every game where it's like, oh, just hold on to the ball, Gabe. Hold on to it. So I don't have the stat, but it looks like that. Yeah.
He gets open. He's got a big frame, and
Such a good
he's
red zone target.
So when you see these, he's infuriating because he's, in my opinion, the ideal wide receiver 2 for this offense, but he's not playing like it. And I think that's going to bring the OBJ, crowd. It's going to make the OBJ to Buffalo crowd a lot louder, I think. And that's something to be talked about on another day, But I think that drum beat is going to get louder if Gabe Davis doesn't start picking it up. So this could be a great matchup for him to exploit.
If we're looking at total DVOA from Football Outsiders, Bills are number 1, pretty significantly, and the Lions are number 16 right now. So kudos to the Lions. So DVOA, Football Outsiders, thinks they're better. I think, where did we have them in the power rankings, Jimmy? I think we had them at 19 or so, 18.
Yeah, I think you said 18.
Yeah, so that's a testament to how they've played. A couple interesting things that stood out to me. The Bills have the number 2 DVOA red zone defense and the number 3 overall defense. So that's a key, because there are certain defenses that are good but are not good in the red zone, or not good in general but amazing in the red zone. Bills have both of those. But they also are the 28th worst offense in the red zone. Now, we know clearly that's on Josh Allen. And as far as PFF grades, just talking about the quarterbacks, Josh Allen's still 3rd with a 90.7 overall grade for offense. For the season, Jared Goff, 33rd with a 60 grade.
I will say, Jared Goff looks a lot better than I thought he would this season. I wouldn't have been surprised if Jared Goff got benched. If you told me on this season he was going to get benched, I wouldn't have been surprised. I'm at the point now where I actually have a lot of respect for him, and I think he's a gamer. I think he's a competitor. He doesn't always get it done because I think he's a little bit athletically limited. His traits aren't crazy, but he's proven to be able to helm at least a somewhat competent. I mean, the offense is.
He's
is
been to a
not
Super
problem.
Bowl. We have to, we tend to forget that. He
That's
took
why I
the
have
Rams
to
a
always
Super Bowl.
remind everyone. I'm always like,
Yeah.
this is a man who played in a Super Bowl. Yes, he lost, but he made it there. And everyone's like,
That's
oh, it was
true.
the defense. I'm like, no, they had the second
No,
best offense.
they also
in the league
had
that year.
They had McVay and they had
true.
Todd Gurley at his peak. We have to keep these things in mind. We had a great offensive line that year. But here's a quick plug for PFF, because look at these two guys. If we're just looking at their stats, the way we used to track them, there's not a huge difference. I mean, you've got their completion percentage is almost identical, 64.7 to 63.9. 2,900 to 2,400, 500 yards. But over the course of 10 games, that's not a huge difference. 21 to 10, touchdown to interception, 15 to 7. QB rating, not a big difference. Like, if we're just looking at these two guys without any other context, we're like, it's kind of an equal matchup. But then I just gave you the PFF grades.
Yeah, you go shot for shot with those two quarterbacks. And I mean, I think a big thing with Josh is a lot of the times people don't factor in his rushing. I think that's kind of like the X factor to Josh Allen's game. You know, he's pretty much a shoo-in for right there. You go. He's pretty much a shoo-in for 50 yards a game, which is tough because the betting lines are always right around like the low 40s, and I'm always like, oh, this is going to be a game where Josh won't run that much, and I always lose. He always hits the over.
So I'm going to close out this game by mentioning two I think are going to be the key units here. I think the Buffalo pass rush, because we know that Goff can be good when he has a clean pocket. And by the way, a clean pocket, the Lions actually have one of the better offensive lines in the entire NFL. So this is not something you just write off and say, oh, the Bills are going to get pressure. That's one of the reasons Goff has been better than maybe a lot of people expected, is because he's protected well. We saw that in the Rams Super Bowl run. If he's protected well, he's got a very good arm. He can be a good thrower of the football. So that's going to be key. And then we mentioned already the Lions secondary. Can they slow down? I think they'll be able to limit the run game. The Bills, no offense, Kevin, aren't that hard to stop in the run in general. The Browns have a very bad run defense. So I think it's going to come down to, can the Bills move the ball through the air? I'm sure they will be able to. Does Josh Allen avoid some of the red zone mistakes he's made in the past? And on the other side of it, can the Lions offensive line give Goff a clean pocket? If not, if Von Miller gets in there, you're going to see an entirely, that's going to be the thing that not only tips Buffalo for the win, but also helps them cover that 9.5 points.
Yeah. And it's pretty interesting because I definitely have Buffalo covering the spread. It's going to be tight. I definitely think this is a game that the Lions will make competitive. And yeah, I think you're right. Pass rush is a big thing. Von Miller, the interior of Buffalo's pass rush is one of their strengths. And I know that is the center for the Lions playing? I heard he might be out.
Right now is active, yes.
Oh, he's going to be playing? Okay.
He's going to be playing, yep.
Okay, that's too bad for Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones. Jordan Phillips getting in there. But last but not least, I looked up a second ago. Lions are 6-4 against the spread this year. Is that true?
Yes.
That's scary.
Last year too, they led against the spread, even though they won like 2 games.
That's scary. Aiden Hutchinson, scary. It'll be.
Can I see this being like a 30-21 game, like where it's they just come under? It's
right.
I'm confidently, so we can make our picks and move on to the next game. I'm confidently picking the Bills to win this game. Sorry, Anthony, I know the Lions are on a 3-game win streak. I don't think it'll be an absolute slaughter like we saw with Dallas and Minnesota last week. My bigger question, I'll need to dive in before I make my game picks on Friday, or before tomorrow actually, is if I think the Bills will actually be able to cover that 9.5 points. It's tricky. Good job, Vegas. You're making us think.
I agree.
I'm gonna make the hot take of the year, because I think that it's Thanksgiving. The Detroit Lions are notorious for playing at Thanksgiving. This is going to be the game where Dan Campbell establishes the culture and beats the Bills. I think this is the one.
That's a homer pick, but I love it. Good for you. Good for you for sticking with your team.
I love it.
Let's hear Jimmy. Jimmy, bring us back to earth here.
I'll take the Bills, and I probably won't decide on the spread until right before the game tomorrow. I'll have some time to think about it.
Flip a coin.
I'm kind of going back and forth on it. I really will. I mean, that's basically what my betting comes down to anyways. But I will say the Gabe Davis stat that you asked about earlier, he's 7th in the league in drop percentage with 10.9 via Pro Football Reference. He has 6 drops and 55 targets. That's second for wide receivers as well. So
frustrating.
Wow. That's not good.
Just to throw that out there. But yeah, Bills will win.
All right, so we got all of our picks in. Now let's go on to the next game, which is going to be, which one's next? The Giants, right? Giants and
Cowboys, Giants. Yeah.
That's right. So let's get some stats up here.
This is going to be an exciting game to talk about. These teams,
Yes.
both of them, fascinating. Been very fun to watch this.
Very interesting. Like, I mean, even if like some of the we're looking at the points now, we got two games that are at 9.5. The Vikings playing the Patriots after losing by 37 points, but they're interesting. Like I can say, every single one of these games is not a snoozer. It's not a Rams Saints kind of game. It's not a Cardinals Rams. I keep mentioning the Rams because they're just so sad to watch. But I'm interested. I'm genuinely interested, even beyond my normal football fandom, to watch all three of these games.
I think there's a chance for all of them to be blowouts in some capacity, but I think either way, I think the team that might lose, I think they'll be fun to watch, and I think there's a possibility of some sort of quote unquote upset with each game. So,
yeah, I could definitely see it both ways. But anyway, Daniel Jones, which isn't having an awful season, 1937 yards, 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. The Dak Prescott stat is a little iffy because he was out for a few weeks. But coming back, 1,132 yards, 8 touchdowns, 4 interceptions while healthy. Looks good. Tony Pollard up as a reliable running back. He's after Zeke's job, and it's showing. And I think that he's going to take it.
After it, he took it. He's already taken it.
He took it.
Zeke came back. He had like 16 or 17 touches, but Pollard was the RB1. Even though Zeke technically went in first, like this is Pollard's team now. I was worried. I just traded for Pollard. Actually, he helped win. I'm now 8-3 in my main dynasty league because I added Pollard. Without adding Pollard, I wouldn't have won that game. But it's because, and I was worried, Jerry Jones, they love Zeke, but I think Zeke's the goal line back. He's the short yardage guy. Pollard is the RB1 now in Dallas.
I'll have to agree with you, especially after that game against the Vikings, because he blew up on them. Saquon Barkley, 213 carries, 953 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He's been doing better than anybody thought in the offseason, I think. And he was returning from an injury. Everyone's like, he's just going to be mediocre, but he has shown up. He's been an integral part of the Giants offense.
I don't know about everybody. Like I thought he was one of my pick. I didn't get him in any of my leagues, but I wanted him. And he kept going higher than I thought because I thought people were sleeping on him and they weren't. So I think there's actually a fair amount of people who are like, this could be Saquon's chance to come back.
Yeah, people were trying to get me to trade him in some dynasty leagues. I was like, I'm not selling low. I'm selling high still because I still have faith and he'll come back and be one of the top running backs. And he's obviously paid dividends on that for my team. So I will say that Daniel Jones, he does have 437 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. So that's something to behold as well. People, I saw your face, Kevin. It's always nice to see someone shocked about his rushing ability, but those are both career highs for him already this season. So they're finding a way to get him involved on the ground too.
He's always been an athlete. He's always been a guy that could do that. I had no idea the usage was that high. That's fascinating. That's an exciting development. I mean, I always take the over rushing yards for him. It feels like free money.
And that's the key to this game, just to expand on that a little bit, is the Giants' offense entirely relies on the run, not just with Barkley, but with Daniel Jones as well. If you look at their PFF grades, overall Daniel Jones at 19th with a 68.5, but that's weighted 64.9 as a pass grade, 74.7 as a run grade. That's very good for quarterback. And Dak on the other side, 73.9 overall. Actually has an even higher run grade at 78.1. That's a little underrated for Dak's game, 69.5 in the pass. But the Giants have to win by the run. And the fact that Detroit shut down the run game last week is why the Lions were able to blow them out. That's a key matchup here.
So away from the run, the receiving yards there's a gap here because Darius Slayton has 413 yards and 2 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb has 751 and 5 touchdowns. So if it comes down to who's catching the ball, Dallas has the upper hand, in my opinion. And CeeDee Lamb, he's young and he's fast. He's a good back or a good receiver. And then Dak Prescott knows how to throw to him, knows how to utilize him. So if they can just get that in rhythm, Darius Slayton won't be able to catch up to that.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that CeeDee Lamb, given that he was with a backup quarterback for half the season, that's an impressive stat line. 58 receptions, 751 yards, 5 touchdowns. That goes to show you that maybe the CeeDee Lamb is a true alpha wide receiver one crowd is finally getting their proof in the pudding. And I love Darius Slayton. I think he's a great deep threat. I think he's a great, he's good for a dice roll touchdown a game. I think it's really unfortunate for the Giants that their wide receivers have been so banged up. No Sterling Shepard. Wan'Dale Robinson misses 80% of the season and then tears his ACL in his first breakout game. It's really heartbreaking because I think that Brian Dable is such a genius, and I think that he could do such great things with a full set of weapons. It's just not looking like that's going to be the case this season. So Dimes, Saquon, and Darius Slayton, it is. We'll see how they can put it together for the rest of the season, but I do think it's unfortunate given what they've gone through with injuries.
The Cowboys. Go ahead, Jimmy, then I'll make my point.
I was just saying, for the Giants, Wan'Dale Robinson being out is going to be huge because he was showing some upside on the receiving side. Daniel Jones hasn't had a lot of help this season with Kenny Golladay. That when you cheer after getting one reception in the game, that things are going wrong for you. But as for the Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb, I mean, they obviously have the upside for the wide receiver one, but after that, it's Noah Brown with 384 yards on the receiving side. So that's obviously why they're looking at Odell Beckham Jr. and they're already promoting him and trying to recruit him on Twitter already, just wide open on their team social media page. Because if they had a wide receiver too, I feel like that benefit them even more, especially CeeDee Lamb.
It's a great point.
Yeah, I want to expand on I think the main point of this game is the Giants' run game versus the Cowboys' run defense. So according to DVOA, Dallas is the number 2 defense overall in the NFL, number 2 against the pass, number 10 against the run. So they're more susceptible to the run, but they still have a top 10 run defense. But that's what this comes down to, because that's all you have to do with this Giants team. The New York Giants are 15th in overall offensive DVOA, so basically right in the middle of the field, but that's almost entirely skewed to their run game. You shut that down, the Giants don't have anything else they can rely on. They, as good as Daniel Jones has been, and I think that's a credit to Daboll and this new coaching staff of putting him in position to utilize his talents, make smart decisions, get the ball out quickly, and utilize his legs. You shut down that run game, it completely cripples the ability for the Giants to really move the ball, especially if they get down early, which could very well happen because they have the 27th ranked DVOA defense. That's lower than I expected. I figured they were more middle of the road. 27th in DVOA in total defense, the Giants.
I noticed something too looking at the passing because, it's definitely going to be about the run, I think, in this game. But Dak Prescott was out for 4 weeks, 5 weeks. 4 weeks, right?
I think Cooper started for four games.
Right. And he already...
And then there was a bye, so 5 weeks, right. 4 games.
Okay. So he's already caught up to Daniel Jones in touchdowns. And, I mean, that productivity, I think, is... I mean, even interceptions is tied here. And he didn't even play as many games. Daniel Jones with the 65.1 completion percentage, Dak with 67. And then I'm just saying there's a big gap, I think, between these two quarterbacks and their abilities. And because I think Dak Prescott is far better than Daniel Jones, especially with even his receiving core. Like you said, Kenny Golladay hasn't even been on the field. Daniel Jones doesn't have much to do. He's scrambling out of the pocket all of the time. Dak Prescott at least makes it into the end zone sometimes. So I think passing, Dallas has the upper hand, but rushing, I think the Giants might have the upper hand in running. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So the teams are both 7-3. By the way, we're kind of talking about how good the Cowboys are and how the Giants are kind of one-dimensional, but they're the same record. Once again, I think coaching has a huge impact on that record. But I'm starting to wonder if we finally saw the Giants as they're meant to be last week. You shut down that one thing, and then they're too one-dimensional. They're not capable to make it up in the pass game. Looking at overall DVOA, Dallas number 2 actually. I didn't realize this. So the Bills are 1. Dallas are number 2 in overall DVOA right now. The Giants, 21st. And if you weight that with more recent games, 26th. 10-foot waves, which I'm guessing is Tyler put in, says, I wouldn't sleep on Danny Dimes. I don't know.
Not.
You're going to have to do something magical because you're facing the Cowboys defense. Look what they just did to Kirk Cousins. Not that he's anybody's idea of a great quarterback, but man, they sacked him 7 times. That was the most Cousins had ever been sacked in a single game in his entire career. Micah Parsons playing like Defensive
That's
Player
true.
of the Year candidate. Trayvon Diggs shut down Justin Jefferson. Like everybody, the big knock on Diggs last year was, he leads the league in interceptions, and it was fair. He was also allowed, I think, first or second most yards allowed in the pass game. He was very much boomer bust. He has been a much more sound cornerback this year. Doesn't have as many interceptions, but he's actually playing better in coverage. That's huge. You don't have Darius Slayton is your number one wide receiver. If you could shut down Justin Jefferson, I don't have any confidence that Slayton, short of like getting deep once, can win the one-on-one matchup against Diggs. Then what do you have left? You have to get Saquon going. You have to hope he rips off some big runs against the number 10 run defense. I just don't really see a path, other than it being a division game and coaching, which you got to give it some sort of credit to Daboll there. I don't see a lot of paths to victory for the Giants here. What do you guys think?
I gotta say, I think you're making a lot of great points, and I think to 10-foot waves point, shout out to Tyler. I think it's really interesting because Danny Dimes is the kind of player who has just enough fairy dust, just enough magic that, like, you never know. You never know. He might just put together some sort of a weirdly good game. He might just make some sort of a crazy good play. And I don't know. I don't see it happening in this game. I don't see the Giants winning this game. I do see them covering, to tell you the truth. Like you said, it's divisional. There's enough. So there's some huge statistical disparities, but I think the coaching levels out the playing field. I think it's time to consider Brian Daboll a contender for Coach of the Year if they keep winning. I mean,
I've been considering him. He's
if they go to the playoffs, I think he's a heavy candidate. But also, not to mention, when it comes to this is something that might be a hot take, and I'd love Brian, Jimmy, Anthony. I'd love for you all to weigh in. But is it time to start considering? I'm afraid to even say it because I don't want NFL.
Say it. We're here for it.
Is Dak Prescott overrated? Because I think he is.
Yes.
Yes. I disagree. I want to hear.
I think it's injury prone.
That's not a reason. That's not a rating.
I agree.
Thing.
You can't.
I disagree.
Not even that. Not
that
just being injury prone, but the fact that his athleticism is his downfall. It makes me think that he's not capable of what Jerry Jones thinks he's capable of, and he's kind of shown that. I mean, even Cooper Rush is doing exactly what Dak can do, and I feel like he's
like,
not. It's even
points.
now, and I think that I think he's overrated. I agree with Kevin.
I think he's overrated, but not due to athleticism or injury. I think it's more so. I think it's almost like gamesmanship a little bit. Like there's something about him that in the flow of a 60-minute game, I don't always see him doing what I think the team needs to win the game. I think he might be great on paper, but he doesn't have that situational football skills to put together strings of wins, especially down the stretch, like at the end of a season or in the playoffs. That's kind of where I'm looking to see him maybe turn a corner. Hopefully, I mean, I thought this would be the year. It's too soon to say definitively that it's not the year, but I would like to see something more out of Dak Prescott before I start considering him in the elite tier of quarterbacks. I think he's maybe second or third tier quarterback right now.
There's a difference between saying he's elite and saying he's overrated. And that's actually the point I was going to make. So, Kevin, I'm glad you brought up that word specifically. I don't think he's elite, but I think he's in the very next tier. There's only maybe 4 quarterbacks we can consider elite. I don't even know if I put Rodgers in there anymore, due to age, right? You got Mahomes, you got Josh Allen. Herbert is hovering there. I think that's a lot to do with Joe Lombardi at that, offensive coordinator, and Staley was starting to question his coaching. Dak, you can't put Dak in that. Burrow obviously goes in the elite category.
Yeah.
Lamar. But then there's Lamar. Hovering right there.
Jalen Hurts.
I think Lamar, Herbert.
Hurts is getting there.
Yeah, I agree.
Tua? Okay, we're going to keep moving on. I'm just going to throw that in there. No, not yet. No, I'm just kidding. Not yet.
Yeah.
He works so great in that offense. Anyway.
No, don't be humble. You can put him in the second tier.
I'm going to own Tua while I can. I'm going to ride
Live in the moment. Live in the moment, man. Live in the moment.
But here's the thing. Then there's the tier of quarterbacks. And I'm not even talking about numbered 1, 2, 3, but there's tiers of quarterbacks. We'll put Cousins in here. We'll put Carr in there. Where everything that's around them is solid. They can win some football games. They can put up some numbers. I actually think Dak is in between that tier and the other tier. I still think he can win even when things aren't perfect. You look at their roster. I picked the Cowboys to miss the playoffs this season. They had so many losses on the offensive line. They had so many losses as far as offensive weapons with Cooper going to Cleveland. And the fact that they're still winning games the way they have, the fact that they're still, he's not. But if you look at the beginning of last year, like he was one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the entire NFL for the first half of that season when he had all this stuff
Definitely.
around him. Like Kirk Cousins can't get to that level. Carr can't get to that level. So I think Prescott is in between that Carr Cousins level where they can be top 10 quarterbacks if everything's good, and like the Mahomes and Allens is. So he's like maybe, but that still puts him like maybe a top 5 quarterback. Like that's how good I think he is. He's actually very good before the snap. He's very good at changing offensive line, picking up blitz coverages. He's very good at reading defenses. He does use his athleticism, but he doesn't use it as a crutch. He's like Justin Fields, who is phenomenal, but I mean, he is playing so well because of his athleticism. I don't think that's Dak's thing at all, but I don't think he can carry an entire team on his back regardless of who's on his roster. Mahomes loses Tyreek Hill. Oh, well, he's just going to play maybe his best game of his entire career. Dak's not on that level, but I don't think underrated because I don't think anybody thinks he's on that level. I think he's properly
I'm glad
rated.
you clarified that. I do hear that. I mean, maybe it's because not to sound, all NFL fans are created equal, and I love fans of every team, but I think
No, they're
Cowboys
not.
fans,
But go ahead.
I think Cowboys fans tend to bang that drum really hard for Dak, and
Yeah.
and sometimes it's the other way. I have 2 close friends who are Cowboys fans, and one of them loves Dak, and one of them hates Dak. One of them tells me he's top 5. One of them tells me he's not top 15. So I think maybe I'm speaking more to the top 5 crowd by saying he's overrated. I think you can comfortably put him between 6 and 10 comfortably. But I don't want to hear top 5 until he puts it together. And like you said, he before the snap, great, does some great things with great guys around him. He's better when his supporting cast elevates him. But yeah, I think Anthony, I do agree with you that he's overrated. I'm glad that we're on the same page there. But Brian, you're right by saying that if he's appropriately rated, he's a little lower. But
I want to mention one additional comment specifically to the Cooper Rush comparison, simply because Rush won games. Rush wasn't beating anybody 40-3. And a team that was 8-1 going into last week that we had in our number 1 in our power rankings, Anthony. So that's the difference, is that with this same supporting cast, with the same strong defense, with Tony Pollard, with CeeDee Lamb playing good as the wide receiver 1, Cooper Rush was winning games. They beat the Giants by 7. That's worth mentioning, too. It's the second time they played this season. They beat the Giants under Cooper Rush by 7. And then Dak Prescott comes off a game where he puts up 40 points on a team that had the best record in the NFL. That's the difference between Dak and Cooper. Let's go ahead and pick this game so we can move on to the final one.
Okay.
I guess I'll start since I'm ranting here. I'm going to pick the Cowboys to win, and I'm going to pick them to cover. If they could beat the Giants by 7 on the road with Cooper Rush at quarterback, as well as they're playing now, I know it's a division game, and I hate betting high spreads on division games because you just never know what happens, but this is at home. Dallas is riding a high. The Giants are riding a low, getting humiliated by the Lions the week before. As much as I love Dable as a coach, I agree, Kevin, he should be in that conversation for Coach of the Year. There's just too big of a discrepancy here. They may play it close. It may be one of those games that's close at halftime, but I think the Cowboys pull away, so I want to pick them to win and cover.
David Marazzo, in our comment section, Dak is a better fantasy quarterback than he is a real quarterback.
That's a Niners fan speaking. David, I love you, man. Thanks for showing up.
All right, I'll go ahead and make my pick. I'll pick the Cowboys as well to win and cover. I think the biggest thing here is the trenches on the offensive line and defensive line. They have the most sacks on the defensive side of the ball, 6 more than any other team. On the offensive side of the ball, they've allowed the second fewest sacks. So I think those two are big in terms of stopping an offense and getting an offense going down the field when you're not taking a lot of sacks. It's a lot easier for your offense to move the ball and not fall back as much.
And the Giants are a blitz-heavy team under Martindale, but they actually haven't been that good at getting to the quarterback. So they're dialing up pressure, and it's not working. You're going up against a great offensive line. Like I said, I don't really see a path to victory here, but I'll stop talking.
Kevin, who's winning?
All right, so I think you got to pick Dallas in this game. They're hot as a pistol right now. I mean, the loss to Green Bay hurts, but that Minnesota get-right game, you don't often have a get-right game against the number 1 team in the power rankings against a 8-1 team. So I gotta give it up for Dallas. I think they're going to win the game. I'm going to take the Giants to cover the spread. I think they're going to sneak in maybe a late score to bring it a little bit closer, make the final score look a little bit closer than the game actually was. You're right. Divisional, it does help a lot picking the Cowboys that they're home and that it's Thanksgiving. But I like Dable and I like dimes and I like quads. There's just too much going on. I will say the Giants. I was when you guys told me the DVOA Giants defensive statistics, I was surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I thought their defense at a 7-3 record with Dimes as your quarterback, I thought the defense would be carrying them a little bit more. So,
and I bet you if you looked at their yards allowed and points allowed, it would actually be a little bit lower because they're playing in low-scoring football games. But when they can't contain an offense like they did against Detroit, that shows the real weaknesses of their defense.
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and I think it's awesome to break all that down because it's funny because I think it's very similar to Mike Vrabel in the way that the Titans win games. It's just good coaching. If you got the guy who's got it between the ears, who knows how to lead his troops into battle, like it makes a difference. And I think Dable is definitely that guy, but not enough to overcome the Cowboys on Thanksgiving off of that dominating performance. You got to take Dallas to win the game, but Giants to cover.
I agree with the Cowboys winning. I think the Cowboys are going to also cover. Just because they're coming off that huge win against the Vikings, who were looking like a really good team. So they just blew out a really good team. So supposedly, they seem to have shut them down completely. Minnesota was confused out there. So
We'll talk about the Vikings next. We get to talk about Minnesota with the final game.
I think Dallas is going to confuse New York just like they confused Minnesota. I think that they found their rhythm and they're ready to go out and play. I think they're going to cover and win.
Wow. And so really quick, this is a yes or no question. Are the Giants, can you call them frauds?
I can call them frauds. I think they are frauds. I mean,
I wouldn't call them frauds. I always knew what they were. I was waiting for it to happen. They just lasted longer than I thought. Honestly, we're going to talk about Minnesota. It's the same thing. I keep picking Minnesota to lose. I finally got it right. I didn't know I was going to get it right by 37 points. So it's not that they're frauds. I kind of knew who they were. I think we all knew who they were. But once again, testament to the coaching, testament to how the team plays together as a team better than the sum of their parts. So fraud seems like a strong word to use on a team that's 7-3 and looking like a wild card team.
Yeah, throwing out the F word like that is pretty strong for frauds. But I don't think it's out of the realm. But I think they are pretty good. But the record kind of maybe said too much for a lot of casual fans before the last game.
Shout out to David for the Cinderella reference though. Clock did strike midnight. I'm not gonna say frauds. I love that. That cracked me up. I'm not gonna say frauds, but I think Brian makes a good point. People thought they might have been better than they were, but they are good or okay.
It's like they found a way to win. That's what was happening. Was like they weren't playing well, but they knew how to win games. I think that's a lot to do with Dable, and I think that's why he deserves that Coach of the Year status. It's because he was able to finish games. Even the Lions had better talent and they were playing better, but they couldn't finish games. They couldn't win, but New York did. And I think that, I think they're frauds, but they're really good frauds.
By the way, before we get away with it, good frauds. That's what we're New York Giants. Frauds. They're really good frauds. Let's end it on that. I do want. There's some Tua slander in the chat. Can we put that up? Pro Football Demon, our lovely Rich Jodice
made an appearance.
Mike White, who has been announced as starter for the Jets, greater than Tua. Smirk. I won't even say anything, Rich. Well, we play one more time this year.
I'll say something. Pro Football Demon. No. I had to be like being a Bills fan, seeing what Buffalo's been doing to Miami for years. I was the one of the last people to buy in on Tua, but you know what? The guy is putting it together this season in a way that I didn't think he ever could, and there's something to be said. Look, he's athletic, he's great, he's good at manipulating the pocket. He's got a great accurate arm, a little bit of a water pistol. I'm sorry to say that. He doesn't have a cannon.
He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to in this offense. I'm fine with that. It's true.
He doesn't have to. And I respect how they're putting it together to win with Tua. And I think he's definitely entering the second tier of quarterbacks where you have to say that he's great. I have to give it up. Sorry.
We will probably see Mike White, because I think he'll probably keep the starting job for the rest of the year versus Tua later this season, Rich. So we'll have a chance
Brian,
to revisit that.
You think he's going to keep the job for the whole year? I don't. I think they're going to go back to Zach Wilson. I think this is a reactionary, not in a bad way. Like, I'm not criticizing the coaching call to bench Zach Wilson, but I think it's a little bit of a response to his pathetic media presence the other day and how bad he played against New England. He's still, what was it, third overall pick?
Second overall pick.
Second
Yeah.
He's
overall
still
pick.
got that pedigree, and I don't think you can just say, "Sorry, buddy, your time is up after what 15 games."
Well, I saw a great tweet by Rich Samini, who covers the Jets for ESPN, and he mentioned with regards to the decision for Robert Saleh to bench Zach Wilson is that when he's got that. So Saleh was it was his first year head coaching when they drafted Zach Wilson. He didn't really have a lot to deal with that decision. That was Joe Douglas. That was management, whatever. And the first year was all about Zach Wilson, getting weapons around him, upgrading the offensive line, making the defense better to put him in good situations. This year is all about the team as a whole, and that there is a shift in Saleh's mentality. And I don't think he benched him just because of those comments, which were bad. I think he benched him because of how we've now had 2 seasons. He's been the starter since the start of last season. We've had nearly 2 seasons to see what Zach Wilson does. I'm trying to ignore the comment as I finish.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, fine. Your job is to complete passes in the NFL. Tua does that effectively. Just had that because Brian had way too happy lately. All right, fair enough. Pro Football Demon coming off of that tough loss. He's a Jets fan, in case you couldn't tell that.
I want to know Pro Football Demon's thoughts on that Zach Wilson question.
I do. Yeah, Rich, put your thoughts in the chat about the Zach Wilson decision. He's not a Zach Wilson fan as a Jets fan, so I think I know what he's going to say. But to finish up my point, I think you have a Jets team that is competing for a playoff spot. This is a different situation than they were in last year. It was all about rebuilding. They've given him the tools. The one thing missing, in my opinion, and Breece Hall was injured, so yeah, the running game isn't as good, is the quarterback. You have a top 5 defense. You have lots of weapons on the offense, including one of the best rookie wide receivers in Garrett Wilson. You have, when Breece Hall is healthy, an absolute grand slam at running back. Your offensive line has played much better this year. Elijah Vera Tucker, before he got injured, was playing phenomenally. But the quarterback still hasn't gotten it again. They have won despite him. So I think with the way the Jets are set up, if Mike White wins games, there's no reason to go back to Zach Wilson unless you're completely eliminated from the playoffs and you want to get a little bit more tape on him.
I totally agree with that point. I think the big if is if he wins games, because he's Mike White. He's okay. I remember that game when he beat Cincinnati last year, and everybody was saying better than Zach Wilson, better than this, that, and the third. But he came down to earth so fast with a 5 turnover performance against Buffalo. And I don't think, did he ever start again after that? I don't think he ever did.
No, I think they benched him after that game.
And if you're talking about winning games, I think you got to go with Flacco, right? Like, if you're trying to just win games.
Nah, at this point, if you remember that, yes, he threw a lot of touchdowns. There's a guy who was better at fantasy than was as an NFL quarterback. He did not play well in those games. His only really good statistical game was that Browns game, and almost all of that scoring came in the last 2 minutes of the game. Right. Flacco does not give you a better chance than Mike White. I'm not a Mike White believer. I'm not shouting the rooftops. This Jets team is going to have a new quarterback next year. I am. He's not the 2023. The Jets quarterback's not on the roster. I'm very confident in that. But yeah, so let's put a Pro Football Demon. Zach doesn't get another start. No other QB on the roster is that bad. He's 37th in true completion percentage.
Well, there you go, Pro Football Demon. You're bringing the truth.
This guy knows the Jets more than any of us. So I think maybe they move to White. I mean, maybe they do move to Flacco if White doesn't play well, but I would be surprised unless their season is just a disaster. But even in that case, you might as well keep the disaster going to get a better draft pick. But I think they're going to be. I think this defense is that good. I think their skill players are that good, and this team is playing so well under Saleh that White will do enough. He'll do enough where Zach Wilson isn't doing enough to get victories. I would be surprised if Wilson starts again this year.
I don't. I'm coming around a little bit, but I'm also still just like, wow, Zach Wilson out in New York after 2 seasons. I think it's a hot take. We'll see.
We saw Josh Rosen gone after 1, a number 10 overall pick, and they picked Kyler the next year.
It's a new age.
It's a new era.
Yep. Kevin got a shout out.
I appreciate you, David. Thank you, man.
I have to agree. It's the third name. It just gives him that credibility, and we're listening. You add that. My middle name doesn't work as well for the flow, but Kevin Phillip Fox, he was built for this.
You got to throw it in, Brian. Give it a shot. Give the middle name a shot.
Christopher. No, it doesn't. Brian Christopher McFadden is a mouthful. It's too much.
Brian McFadden's great. The Mick brings everything you need.
We have spent too much time talking about the Jets on Thanksgiving. Let's go talk Vikings Patriots.
Guys, real quick, I do have to leave, but I wanted to say I think the Vikings are going to win the next game. I think I think they're going to come back and win. I do think it might be a close game. I'm thinking predicting like a 1-point game against the Patriots. The Patriots have a pretty good defense. They're allowing only the second fewest yards this season, so I think that could come into play. But I think the Vikings will pull it out eventually. I think it could be a close game though.
All right. Well,
Good
thanks for
take.
coming
See you
on,
guys.
Jimmy. I'll see you next
Yeah,
week.
Jimmy, nice to meet you, man.
See you guys.
Yeah,
Appreciate it. I'll be listening in.
Cool. Enjoy
See
the
you
game.
guys. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jimmy.
So Kevin's getting all the love today. Pro Football
Ooh.
Demon. This is the Bills fan we needed.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the positive energy, you guys. I'm just happy to be here. Anthony and Brian, you guys have been awesome. Jimmy was so cool. Like having somebody who's just like got the stats and just ready to go. Like I need somebody like that with me at all times. Like that's awesome.
I'm just here so I don't get
pretty
fined.
All right, Vikings and Patriots. So we have Mac Jones, who has not been the greatest at quarterback. I mean, even his backup, Bailey Zappi, was actually making that fan base excited. And then Mac Jones came back and just had an awful game against the Jets. 134 for 195, 1,386 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. When you have more interceptions than touchdowns, you have an issue, and you're seeing ghosts. And maybe it's too much pressure. Maybe you don't have good receivers out there getting open. Kirk Cousins has 2,461 yards, 14 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. The quarterback matchup, Minnesota is the clear upper hand here. What do you guys think about the passing? Because Mac Jones has not been producing.
I'll let you take this one first, Kevin. I got thoughts.
Happily. We're both fans of the AFC East, so it's not I have to fight my inner Bills fan to just take a huge lob of trash at Mac Jones. I'm gonna
you can do it. We won't hate you on this show for that.
I'm gonna try to be level-headed here. I think it's no doubt Kirk Cousins is a far better quarterback, far better player than Mac Jones at this time. Do I think eventually Mac Jones could be in a Kirk Cousins-esque tier? Maybe. He's got to start putting it together a little bit more. I think Mac Jones is also one of those players that after his rookie season, the drumbeat for Mac Jones was insane. The fact that he made a Pro Bowl was insane. The fact that he made the NFL Top 100 to me was insane. I think he's fine. I think he would be a great backup, and I think he's a lower tier starter. I think if you take away most of Tua's athleticism and make him less accurate, I think he's close to a Tua sort of player. But he's not producing at that level even right now. He looks bad.
There's a reason for that. And this I called in the preseason. I didn't get all my preseason predictions right, but I said losing Josh McDaniels as his primary coach, as his offensive coordinator and play caller in New England to the head coach job in Vegas would be a huge. They not only did that, they brought on 2 former defensive coaches and Joe Judge and Matt Patricia to run the offense, which has always been weird. They completely changed the offense from what they were doing last year. It's not even like they stuck with McDaniel's offense and just tried to cater it. They completely changed it. They moved to more of a zone blocking scheme instead of a power run defense. They went a lot more shotgun instead of the play action that Jones had done so well. That's going to happen. One of the reasons Tua is not an elite quarterback. Let's just say that. But the reason he's doing so well is he fits so well in that Mike McDaniel offense, that Shanahan offense where they just have to get the ball out quick. His strengths are, and I like that you put the Mac Jones comparison in there because they have similar strengths, even though they're built differently. Decisive when they're comfortable. Accurate, making the right decisions. Those work for those kind of offense where all you have to do is read the defense pre-snap, know where you're going with it, get it out in 2.5 seconds or less, and put it on the money. That's all you have to do. They changed the offense on Mac Jones, so we know he's not good enough to overcome that kind of stuff. You change the offense on Mahomes or out, they're still going to make plays. You can't do that to a guy. I think as good as Tua is playing, if they change the offense on him next year to one that didn't suit him, he'd go right back down to middle of the pack. I think that's the biggest problem. Mac Jones, maybe they didn't scout him properly and they didn't realize that making that big of a change would affect him like that. You put Bailey Zappi in and the offense is basically exactly the same. That's telling. That's the biggest issue.
So, Brian, you're saying that coaching is the issue, which I think I can agree with because Mac Jones does have talent. But how big of an impact does that have on this specific game, do you think?
So let's talk about the game as a whole. I want to start with the DVOAs. So this is surprising.
Okay.
Where do you think? Let's start with the Patriots overall DVOA. Kevin, as an AFC East guy like myself, where do you think? And don't look it up. Where are the Patriots ranked on DVOA?
So not looking it up, if I had to just shot in the dark combined offense defense, I'd say maybe 18.
11.
Wow.
Oh,
And that's
Wow.
mainly because we mentioned earlier that Dallas is the number 2 defense. Guess who is the number 1 defense in DVOA right now? Bill
It's New
Belichick's New
England.
England
Yeah, that's
Patriots.
New
Are
England
we
Patriots,
really
yeah.
that surprised, though? This is
Not
Belichick,
Belichick,
because you know
no,
what?
I'm not surprised at
Belichick
all.
is still there. He didn't go to Vegas. The defense, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
who they have in there. Matt Judon is having a
Yeah.
career year. I think
Judon.
at one point he was leading the NFL in sacks. I don't know if he's still
Yeah.
there. Anthony, if you can look that up. But that's what's weighted them to 11. Their offense is
He's a
much
freak.
worse. They're 26th in offense, but they're number 1 in defense. That's what weights them down to 11. Now let's take Vikings. Anthony, I'll let you guess this one as the NFC North guy. This works out well. Where are the Vikings in DVOA?
I want to say like 15.
24.
Oh,
Wow.
24. And so you've got overall offense 19, which is
Okay.
probably lower than you would have thought, right?
Definitely.
And then overall defense 18. These are the metrics. These are the advanced metrics, which give you a
Right.
better picture of
Right.
what these teams are looking like right now. Now we may begin the analysis.
Yeah,
All
right.
right.
That's fascinating, and I think it really says a lot about how these teams have gotten to where they are. You know, a lot of my favorite analysts say, like it's way more about the how and why as opposed to the what. And I think that that's what DVOA sort of puts in context a little bit. How did you get there? You know, it's not just, oh, we're this good because of these stats. It's here's how you get to those stats. And then especially with the adjusted, which I heard you bringing up earlier, the adjusted for
weighted.
schedule, correct?
Yeah, they
Right,
weighted. Well, and also for more recency, because teams completely changed throughout the season.
All of that.
Patriots are 8th in weighted, by the way, so they're even better if you look at what they've done recently.
And that doesn't surprise me because I remember early in the year thinking that they might not even sniff the playoffs. I remember thinking they might be just a bad team. And so seeing them kind of rise to the point of competitiveness, I hate to say it because I hate the Patriots, but that's exciting. I like having more good teams. The fact that the AFC East is
Best division in
arguably
football right
the
now.
class of the
Yeah.
NFL, that's exciting. That's cool. And it definitely provides for an exciting Thanksgiving night game. Like, oh my goodness, digesting turkey. Me and Anthony are going to be running around at our restaurant like crazy, like turkeys with our heads cut off. But watching football,
Like most turkeys on Thanksgiving, then.
right.
right? But that's going to be an exciting game because the Patriots, like you said, that defensive competence and Belichick bringing it back to where he always does. It's going to be really exciting to watch.
So I want to explain. We had a great question, David Morazzo in the chat. Are these DVOA rankings for quarterbacks? I'm new to these stats. I think I took a little for granted that people knew it. So let me expand on what DVOA is. So it's very much team-based, where PFF is individual players. We look at grades. They grade every single player, every single snap. DVOA takes a unit, whether it's the entire offense, the entire defense, rush defense, rush offense, pass offense, and the overall team, and compares them to where the statistical averages are. So it's defense adjusted value over average. So if you figure if there's an average NFL team, how much better is this team than the average? How much better is their defense than average? How much better is their offense? How much worse than average? So when we're talking about DVOA, that's how they rank these teams. So the Patriots are a better than average team, and the Vikings at 8-2 are a much worse than average team. Their weighted is still 24, by the way. It's not any better. Their weighted is 24 as far as DVOA.
Wow.
I like that, and I think I want to try to implement that into this show. I'm usually mostly numbers, but I think that adding those numbers into kind of a more sophisticated way of looking at things, and that way we can have more accurate rankings of like how the actual performance of these teams are doing rather than just the numbers. So I'm going to implement that into here, and thank you for explaining that, especially to our listeners who might not know what that means.
That's why I love PFF and I love DVOA, because it takes a look not as holistically and more like actual advanced metrics. What is the 7-3 Giants? Why did they just get pounded by the Lions? Which I called that. I predicted that the Lions would win that game. I was diving into advanced metrics. Shout out, I went 12-2 picking winners last week. So
Nice.
That's pretty impressive. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of those.
I love statistics like DVOA, and I love PFF because me personally, I love football and I love watching football, and I do a little bit of fantasy analysis and I play a lot of fantasy, and my big thing is like I always say, like, more so than anything, I like the eye test. I like watching it. I like seeing how I
Same.
feel. I like giving it, but all that other stuff provides important context. And I think that if you can put it in a blender, like what you think and like what you observe with what you hear and what you see and what you pick up on from the numbers, that's an important way to put together a full picture, in my opinion, of analysis. So I love that we're talking about it that much, because I think it's right, because I think
we kept trying to bring the same comment up, and so I would go up and go down, go up and go down, like you're trying to unlock a car door and the other person's trying to unlock it at the same time.
Yeah, I think I'm glad that we're doing it. It's fun.
Yeah, so DVOA stats is not for individual players. It is strictly for entire teams and units. So offense, defense, special teams. It's from Football Outsiders. If you want to check it out, go to footballoutsiders.com. You can get some basic DVOA stats with a free subscription. If you want the more advanced stuff, you can sign up for an actual subscription.
How do you guys feel about toxic differential?
I'm not sure I've heard of that. Toxic differential.
Toxic differential. Oh my goodness!
Enlighten me. I'm getting new info today.
So right? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We're nerding out now. I know we have Thanksgiving game day. We have Thanksgiving games to break down, but toxic differential. I believe it's a statistic that was created by a former coach. My first instinct is to say it's Brian Billick. Let me look it up. But it's essentially it's a plus minus number, and it factors in 20 plus yard plays, turnovers, and like field position, swinging. Plays. It's Brian Billick invented it. And yeah, that's what it is. It's a plus minus for 20 plus yard plays, that you get, 20 plus yard plays that you give up, turnovers, this, that, and the third. I'll do more research on it, and if we can circle back and talk about it,
so
I would
it's
love
like
to.
It's like a big play analysis.
Essentially,
because turnovers are big plays, and obviously 20-yard plays earned or gone against. Big plays, big momentum swings. Okay.
Yep. Toxic differential. It's a fascinating stat. So that's
cool. I like that.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk some Patriots.
We'll go back to the games here. What happened?
So we talked a lot about Mac Jones. I think Kirk Cousins is gonna have a decent game. I would picture one of those classic pedestrian Kirk Cousins kind of games, because I think that he's gonna be able to get enough going against New England. I saw somebody, I think it might have been David, pick the Patriots in the chat, and we had Jimmy pick. I'm thinking of your brother. We had Jimmy pick the Vikings, but he picked the Patriots to cover. Personally, I'm of the mindset that the Vikings are going to win and cover, knock on wood, just because I think that the Patriots on offense won't be able to get enough going to compete with whatever the Vikings offense will be able to do. Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, newly acquired Lions legend TJ Hawkinson. I think it's going to be a little too much, even given how number one DVOA the Patriots are on defense. I still think that the Vikings are going to be able to put together more on offense than the Patriots will. That's my belief. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, I think the only way that the Patriots have a chance of winning this is to win on defense. And like right here, they've allowed 16.9 points on the season, and then 188 yards passing. I mean, their rushing could be better, but their numbers look good, and they look good. You got Judon there. You got Belichick's defense, and Belichick knows how to win big games using defense. He knows how to call defense. He knows how to stop quarterbacks like Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is not elite. Justin Jefferson is, TJ Hawkinson is, but Kirk Cousins, all he has to do is get the ball to them. If the Patriots can stop that ball from getting to those targets, the Patriots can find a way to win. Personally, and I know we usually predict at the end, but I think the Vikings are going to win, but the Patriots will cover.
Wow. Okay.
And it's just because of that defense. It's just about stopping the ball from getting into the hands of those elite receivers like Hawkinson and Jefferson. And I mean, even the offensive line, Kirk Cousins gets sacked like twice, 3 times a game. And he knows how to get the ball out. He's a veteran. He's been playing this game for a very long time, but he's not as athletic as he was coming in his rookie year, playing for the Washington. And I mean, I like the way the Vikings are playing, but they got shut down by the Cowboys because of their secondary. So if you think about how the Patriots is playing on defense, I think they could do a similar thing.
Those are all great points. I definitely could see that. And so you're picking the same as Jimmy, which I don't think is a bad pick at all. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little hesitant to buy into the current run that the Patriots are on, given their liability play at quarterback. I love Ramondre Stevenson, and I saw Damian Harris really picked it up last week. So if they get the two-headed monster going against Minnesota, that could be interesting. Brian, why don't you give us like what you were thinking?
Yeah, I am going to go the opposite way, and I'm glad that I'm the only one on this island. So for a few reasons. First, we got Cousins in primetime. We all know about Cousins in primetime. All the analysis that you gave of Kirk Cousins goes right out the window. But on top of all that, what do we know about Bill Belichick? He's very open in saying before they even implement their defensive plan, the one thing they start with is who can you hurt us with most? Who is your top player? And what do we got to do to shut him down? Justin Jefferson. Clearly, I mean, doesn't mean they don't have other great players. Dalvin Cook, phenomenal. I'm going to say TJ Hawkinson's not elite, Anthony. I think he's a top 10 tight end. He's very much a weapon. He's an upgrade over what they had, but I wouldn't call him elite. TJ Hawkinson is not going to beat the Patriots. If they do win this game, it's going to be on the run game. Because if they are susceptible to anything, it is that they're 12th in DVOA against the run, which is still very good, right? Better than average, but it's not as good as they are against the pass. They've been very good, mainly because they have two rookies that are starting at defensive back, which have been absolute slam dunks. Jack Jones is one. I can't think of the other one's name. I know Jack Jones' name because he's on my All-22. I picked him up as a free agent, very excited for that. But Matthew Judon is having a career year. He's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL right now. And Christian Darrisaw, who is the number 3 rated PFF tackle for the Vikings, number 3 in the entire NFL, is already ruled out for this game. We just saw Cousins get sacked 7 times against the Cowboys. They're going up against a very good but underrated pass rush in New England. You've got Belichick scheming to take Justin Jefferson out of it. I don't think it'll be a blowout either way. I think it'll be close. I think, once again, if the Vikings win this game, it's going to be because of Dalvin Cook has a good game. But I don't think that's really hasn't been the Vikings style. Surprisingly, Kevin O'Connell has not been very run heavy. I thought he would be. I thought there'd be a lot of play action. That's actually not the offense they're running, which is another thing. Cousins is a fantastic play action quarterback. They haven't done a lot of play action. It's basically it's relied on getting the ball to Justin Jefferson, him just out, mossing everybody for the ball, which is a thing and could very well happen in this game. But to me, it really favors the Patriots. I have to pick an upset. Like the chance of all 3 favorites winning this game, the fact that the Patriots I think line up better. The DVOA is the way it is for a reason. I don't have confidence in the Patriots offense, but you didn't need the Patriots offense to win just now. They also are one of the best special teams in the NFL because it's Bill Belichick. They're always one of the best special teams. So you have the edge in defense, clearly, especially with Darrisaw out. You have the edge in special teams. You have Kirk Cousins in prime time. You just need Mac Jones not to make mistakes. If he's playing clean, and he actually played better than he has played recently against the Jets. They didn't only put up 3 points on offense, but he played a smooth, mistake-free game. Then I could see the Patriots coming out on top in prime time on Thursday night. So I am going to pick the Patriots in a close, probably low-scoring game, maybe a 17-13 kind of game. But I'm going to pick the Patriots to win this one.
Wow.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you differ. I'm glad we don't all agree. But you make some valid points. I know it's primetime Cousins, but there are still a lot of struggles that the Patriots are dealing with. And I think it's been mostly on offense. And I think if the Vikings can slow them down, all they have to do is score a few touchdowns and they'll win. That's how I see it. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys, that was a different story, I think. A whole different story. So I think the Patriots are a completely different team. It's a complete turnaround. I think the Vikings are going to have maybe I don't want to say easy, but a doable win. It's not going to be, they don't have to work too hard at this one.
I'll put one more thing to watch for Minnesota real quick, Kevin, and that is the pass rush for the Vikings. They actually have Zadarius Smith is having a very good year, and they have Daniil Hunter on the other side. So if you can get to Mac Jones and force him to make some of those mistakes, that could be a difference too. Right now, Mac Jones, 36th out of 39 rated quarterbacks in PFF rating. Wow. He is PFF rates him as one of the absolute worst quarterbacks. There's 32 teams, guys. He's 36th. So that is the thing. If Mac Jones, if they can get pressure on Jones, he has shown to be erratic at times this year when he is pressured because he's not as comfortable with the offense. that's another thing to watch. So I think the Vikings running game and the Vikings pass rush are probably the two biggest factors for a Vikings offense. I'm still leaning Patriots, but that's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I definitely think that I think for each game we've had did we have 3 separate calls for each game? Like they'll win, they'll cover, they'll win, they won't cover. Like I love the variety in our takes today. It's been very refreshing. Yeah, I could see that, David. I could see that. It's going to be really interesting to see because there's a little bit of, for me, I think I'm getting maybe blinded by the shine of the Vikings record. And I'm not even mad at myself about it because I watched them play with my own 2 eyes. I've watched a lot of Vikings games this year, and there's a lot to like, and there's a lot to not like, especially when it comes to Kirk Cousins in prime time. But I think at times, I don't like to use the word fraud, but I think that 8-2, like with the Giants, I think that they're a bloated 8-2. They should be
bloated fraud
6-4. They should be a little bit worse. But that's okay because the Patriots, they're doing it with defense. They're doing it with the run game. Ramondre Stevenson is he's my special boy in fantasy football. I went out and traded for him in Dynasty, and I have no regrets. I absolutely love him. And if Mac Jones can get a couple dump offs, if the pressure does come and they can beat that with a screen to Stevenson, I could see this game swinging big. I could see a 38-yard screen to Stevenson swinging the field position or swinging the momentum. But I also could see Mac Jones making that big mistake. So I'm going to stick with my Vikings pick, and I'm going to stick with them covering. That scares me. The covering part scares me. The line's 2.5 now.
Yeah. So you only got to win by a field goal to cover.
That makes me feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, if the Vikings win, I do think they probably will cover just because I don't think they're going to win by 1 or 2. Last thing I'll mention, Vikings 2 losses this year. They've been outscored 64-10. They got crushed by the Eagles in Monday Night Football on week 2, and they got destroyed by the Cowboys last week. So good teams don't lose 64-10 in their only 2 losses of the season.
No, and if Josh Allen can fall forward, they're losing another game. If Josh Allen doesn't throw 2 fourth-quarter picks, they're losing another game. If Cam Lewis knocks the ball down, that game, it was a great game. One of the best, every game of the year. At some point, the Bills won't be on the losing end of the game of the year. Someday. Not this year, unfortunately, or last year, or the year before it. But
you only need to win the final one. You only need to win the final one if you're the Bills.
They're still my Super Bowl pick. I'm riding with them. But
me too.
I picked the Bills in the preseason to win the Super Bowl. I still stand by that. So
I like that. Well, we got a couple smart guys in here, but no, these games are going to be really exciting. I'm very excited for Thanksgiving football this year. It's the best slate of games I can remember.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be good. But Patriots Vikings, I think this might be one of the better games. I mean Lions and Bills. If the Lions can be one of those teams that plays a good game, because it's a hit or miss with them. Watching them for years, you never know what you're gonna get into because they could blow out the Cardinals with a 11-0 record like they did last year, or they could lose against a 2-10 team. You never know. You never know anymore. And it's like we just beat the Giants when we weren't supposed to. We beat the Packers. We weren't supposed to. We almost beat the Eagles. They only beat us by 3. We put up like the most points put up in any game this season. And then the next time they get blown out by 30 points. Like it's a hit or miss with them. So I don't know. Maybe they'll show up for the Bills. They seem to have a rhythm. Dan Campbell seems to be getting his footing. Our talent is there. We're basically a practice squad, college team right now. Everyone's so young, so they're not experienced enough to be beating these teams that they have to beat. So I think the Bills' experience might come up on top there. And then with the Cowboys Giants, I think the Cowboys they're riding on a high and they're going to beat the Giants, I think. And then the Vikings let's see if they can just like come up from the bottom because that's where they are right now after that loss against the Cowboys.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean. Is that it? Are we done? We went for an hour and a half,
man.
guys.
You're hosting this. It's your job to wrap it up.
I mean,
I could go all day.
I could go all day too. So I mean, we're live. If you want to stick around, we could talk more football. It's really up to you. I don't know what you're all up to. We're
It's been an hour and a half. My kid's off school. I should probably get off. But
there you go.
Been a pleasure, Kevin. Awesome meeting you. We'll
Yeah,
definitely,
great to meet you, Brian.
we'll talk about
Yeah.
having you on the 30 Minutes Football podcast. I think you've been
Yeah, that'll be
great.
fun.
Oh, appreciate it.
Anthony,
I would love to chat more football.
absolutely. Anthony,
Cool.
it was fun not hosting. So thank you for allowing me to show up in my hoodie unshaved.
Of course.
Thank you to everybody in the chat. This has been a blast. Can't wait to watch some football all day tomorrow. See you guys.
No, Brian, he's a great analyst. Sign up for legitfootball.com newsletter. It's really good stuff. Watch 30 Minutes of Football. It's Brian's just great. He knows his football, so take advice from him and listen to him.
Your check is in the mail, Anthony. All right.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. See you
All
later.
right, see you, Brian.
All right, Brian. Thank you.
All right,
Anthony.
so what's up?
My dude, this was so fun, man. I said, I could go all day. If you got any hot takes you want to get off now that it's just you and me.
Yeah, I want to know your thoughts on the Lions, non-bias.
Oh yeah,
Like
no,
I
happy
do
to give 'em
because
to you.
like I don't think we talked too much about the Lions. We were more focused on the Bills, which
Yeah.
is fine, because they are the better team. They
Yeah.
struggled a little bit against the Browns, but I think that they're going to
So-
come on.
I'll just say for anyone listening, we're into uncharted territory here. This is bonus content, so you're going to see us unbutton a little bit. It's fully bonus content. But I think if there's an
David,
X factor,
thank
thank
you.
you, David.
Thank
We
you, Dave.
appreciate you, man. Be in touch, man. All right, I appreciate the positive energy. I have to say, if I think there's an X factor on the Giants or on the Lions side of the ball, it's going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown. He scares me. His route running and his ability to create big plays. He could burn the Bills. We saw what happened last week. If the Bills are as down bad in the secondary as they were against Cleveland, Amon-Ra St. Brown could crush Buffalo. And Buffalo, they held their own in the run D last week against Nick Chubb, which I did not see coming. But Jamal Williams could definitely pick up some chunk plays. He could pick up some 5 to 10 yard plays. He could create some magic. So it'll be really interesting. But non-biased, I think the Lions are the most entertaining losing team in football. Yeah. I love when those losing teams have that competitive spirit. What's their record currently?
The record right now is
4-7, right?
4-7. Yeah,
4-7?
4-6. Yeah, we just won 3 in a row, which is better than the defending Super Bowl champions Rams, which is crazy. I was not expecting that.
They could easily be 6-4 too if games went the right way. Like they're that kind of a team. And that stretch where they were getting blown out is really unfortunate. I think it kind of tarnishes a lot of people's perceptions of them currently. But their offense is not to be slept on. Their defense is bad, admittedly. Their defense is really bad, and they're missing their top corner. So Buffalo has a great offense. That's where I think the game sort of tilts. I mean, if Josh Allen shows up with any sort of shred of himself, I think he's putting up 30+. And I don't see you guys putting up 30+ on Buffalo. So that'll be really interesting. I agree with David.
David, I want to tell him why we traded Hockenson.
I didn't like the trade personally. I didn't think the compensation was good enough.
This is what happened. All right. So Hockenson was asking for Travis Kelce money, Mark Andrews money, George Kittle money. But the offense that we're running, Dan Campbell's brand new offense, brand new culture, brand new everything, new team, new staff, everything. It did not have Hockenson in that picture, not for $15 million.
I get that.
They were not going to overpay a position that's not even priority. But if you watch him play, Hockenson played as a blocker. Hockenson played to block on the edge.
Factor. If you get Hockenson going, he can be an X factor. It's just, and Brian said it himself. He doesn't think of him as an elite tight end. So I mean, I guess it's okay.
But you overpay for a tight end that you're not going to use.
But it was
to improve on other positions that we need, like defense.
But it was
we need more work on defense than we do offense.
They moved up 2/4 to get 2 seconds, and they traded a stud.
Yeah,
that's tough. I would have liked to have seen them get those seconds and then not give up the fourths. I mean, don't get me wrong. 4th round picks are not 2nd round picks. There's a lot higher of a success rate in the 2nd round.
So I have a fun fact for you.
Yeah.
In next year's draft, the top 64 picks, Detroit holds 6 of them.
That's exciting.
I
don't think there's any doubt that Detroit is going to be a force for a while. And I think I've told you this since I met you. I love Jared Goff as a stopgap, fill-in-the-blank quarterback until you guys have your quarterback of the future. But I just don't think you're going to win with him. I just think he's a little too limited, specifically athletically. I know that like you and Brian were saying earlier, you can win with him. He's gone to a Super Bowl before.
Yeah.
I just think that the likelihood of him being the reason that you're winning games is lower than the likelihood of XYZ rookie quarterback coming in being the reason that you are winning games in the future. It's gonna be fun to watch the Lions, man. I think they're gonna
Right,
be.
okay.
I think they're gonna come out firing against Buffalo. It's their Super Bowl, and if they win
Yeah.
that game, it becomes way more like their season is sort of saved.
Yeah.
Honestly,
it is.
5-6 in the North, you can compete. I know the Vikings are absolutely. I know the Vikings are absolutely running away right now, but I mean they can sneak into a wild card. The NFC is Hawk decision made sense to me. No reason to pay a tight end when you're in the midst of a
That's what I
rebuild.
was thinking.
I get that.
And I think Pro Football Demon he gets it too. I mean, yeah, the division rival thing kind of blew my mind. Why would you trade to the Vikings when they're your division rival? But the opportunity was there. They offered picks. I think that it had a lot to do with not wanting to overpay a tight end who's asking for too much money. But yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I want to bring up the fact that for the first 4 weeks, the Detroit Lions were the top scoring offense. The only issue in there, so Jared Goff was the top quarterback for 4 weeks. Then he lost 2 receivers. And I think not having those targets was a lot to do with that. Not every quarterback can utilize everybody. Not every quarterback has that capability. It's like Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp. Jared Goff needs his targets. He needs his guys to pass to in order to succeed. If he has a healthy receiving core, Jared Goff could be elite. But if he misses that, then he just goes down. And I think
I think he can be good.
Healthy.
Saying he can be elite is to me a stretch with all due respect. But he can be good with the right complement of weapons. I also think the Swift injury was killer to the momentum that you guys had. He could have been, one of those elite running backs in the NFL this year.
Oh, yeah.
It's been cool seeing Jamal step into that role. I've been happy. I've always loved Jamal Williams. I just think
his energy. Did you watch Hard Knocks?
Yeah, what he brings to the locker room is unprecedented. Yeah, he's just one of those. He's one of those glue guys. So yeah, unfiltered, unbiased. I think the Lions are the most exciting losing team in football. And I would absolutely love to see. Great point, David. Could not agree more. If they get the right guy, that is.
See, this is where I'm going to disagree, because we get a rookie quarterback in the draft. We're starting the rebuild all over again. We're losing everything that we're gaining.
But you're plugging in a quarterback into a culture that's already established, and you'll give them a chance.
Jared Goff was a part of that culture. Brad Holmes, the GM of the Lions, he's the one who drafted Goff when he was the GM for the Rams. Look, he has a connection with him, and I think that he knows what he's capable of. And I think he just needs to show that he still has a good amount of season left to prove that he's our starting quarterback. If he can't prove that, then I will happily say goodbye. But if he can show it, then we're good.
I have nothing outwardly bad to say about Jared Goff. I've told you this before, and I'm so glad it's finally documented on podcast form so we can come back and revisit it in 2 years. But I remember when Buffalo had Tyrod Taylor, and I remember every single year being right in the thick of it until the end of the season and being 7-9, 8-8, 9-7. And it wasn't until his 3rd season that we went to the playoffs on Andy Dalton last minute 4th and 22 miracle against the Ravens.
Right.
And that's the only reason Buffalo snuck into the playoffs that year, and we lost in the first round 10-3 to the Blake Bortles Jaguars. And so even though he's an absolutely fine, maybe even borderline good quarterback, I think that if you're going for a stretch run where you can win a championship, I think you want to get yourself a guy who can go out there and win you some games. You want to get yourself a Fields. You want to get yourself a Trevor Lawrence. You want to get yourself one of those potentially developing building blocks. I mean, admittedly, those don't always pan out. A great example is Mac Jones is a great example. Kyler Murray. What's up with that? Is he going to, that's something that when we have everybody back, if we are able to get our the 4 that we had today for a chat about the whole league, that's a conversation I want to have. Kyler Murray.
Oh yeah,
because who knows?
Some good time on that. Yeah.
Who knows if Kyler Murray is going to be, but you want the lottery ticket that somebody could be great as opposed to just knowing that somebody's going to be fun. In my opinion, there's a million ways to do it, but you guys had Stafford for 10 years, so you know about greatness, and you see that Goff couldn't win.
And so what did Stafford do for 10 years? He chased points because the defense could not. So why use that? Why use that pick that you could do to improve your defense to improve something that doesn't need improving? Why fix something that doesn't need to be fixed? It's not broken. Don't fix it.
I totally respect your opinion, and I think only time will tell. And I think it's just fundamentally, philosophically, we're on different sides of the same coin right now. I would rather have a Josh Allen turn into I'd rather have somebody like a Josh Allen turn into a Kyler Murray or a 2-year wait and see like Trey Lance than have a Kirk Cousins or a Jared Goff or a Derek Carr. That's just me, because I feel like you have a higher likelihood of winning a championship with a special player as opposed to waiting to see if a good player can ever be great enough to win you a championship.
Okay. So Pro Football Demon just replied to David's comment about trading up, and this is what he said. David, if they do that, suddenly we're pointing fingers at the Vikings for trading a pick that helped the Lions grab a franchise quarterback.
And that's true. And that's the risk that you take when you trade within the division or within the conference even.
Well, so what happened? We traded Stafford, right?
Yeah.
Next year, we have the Rams' first-round pick.
That's amazing.
That's looking like it's going to be early. We didn't know that 2 years ago, though.
No.
And so that's a good point that Pro Football Demon said, is because fingers will be being pointed if that pick helps the Lions in any way for that tight end, for Hawkinson.
And I'm going to bring something up that a lot of Bills fans, it's a sore subject for, but I'm not sure if this is super published or super well known. But the pick that the Kansas City Chiefs used to draft Patrick Mahomes was Buffalo's pick. And Buffalo traded back in that draft, acquired a first-round pick next year, and they drafted Tre'Davious White that year, Buffalo. And I love Tre'Davious White. He's an all-pro corner.
Great pick,
coming back from the ACL. And they used the pick that they got to have the ammunition to go up and get a Josh Allen and a Tremaine Edmonds in the following draft. So you're captain on defense and you're captain on offense. You got Tre'Davious White, Josh Allen, and Tremaine Edmonds in a pick that turned into Patrick Mahomes. I mean, it's hard to say who wins that trade because Patrick Mahomes already has an MVP and already has a Super Bowl. But I would do that trade if I'm Buffalo 10 times over. And I'm sure Kansas City would too. So you can't – I feel like it's natural to overthink those things, and it's natural to look at trace the draft pick game and see who wins what, but you also have to look at all that with a grain of salt,
Yeah,
because nobody knows. It's the ultimate lottery ticket is a draft pick, in my opinion.
It's hard to I get your point, and I kind of low key agree with you to an extent, but I still want to see what a young quarterback is capable of. And I don't think we're seeing that fully because this team is not fully rebuilt yet. We're still in the from the ground up.
Which is why I think if you can keep solidifying that culture and keep establishing the building blocks and then have a quarterback come into a culture that's already established, it's going to be a lot healthier and a lot easier than say onboarding a quarterback and a head coach at the same time, which can just be so detrimental. I mean,
because a lot of Lions fans are like, the quarterback's the issue. The quarterback isn't the issue. If you're looking at the numbers, you're watching the games, the quarterback's just fine. But we had a hurt running back. We had 3 hurt receivers. We have a hurt offensive line. We have a hurt defense. Okuda's out now.
The defense is the issue.
We have 6 rookies on defense. And it's like
the Lions are giving up the most points in the league.
Right, yeah, it's true. Yeah, and they've kind of been gaining their footing a little bit in these last 3 games. So hopefully, I think the Bills are going to destroy the defense. So if the offense can just keep up with the points that the Bills are going to be scoring.
It's going to depend a lot on if Josh Allen can, turn this corner from this mid-season slump that he's in. If Josh Allen can put together.
Okay, speaking of Josh Allen, let's turn it over. Let's talk about the Bills now. Because I want to know what's happening with them. And you just saw them play live action, which you see a lot more live action than you do on TV. So what's going on with the Bills?
Well, I'll tell you right now, there was some body language issues in the first half. And I know Diggs and McDermott had the embrace, and Diggs was kind of fired up. First of all, you have to target Stephon Diggs in the first 2 quarters of a football game. He's one of the best receivers in the NFL. Anytime you let Stephon Diggs go more than a quarter without a target, it's a problem. And Diggs knows that. And so I can't have that again personally, as for my own sanity, for my own mental health, I can't see 30 minutes of football pass without seeing Stephon Diggs get at least a target. He should be getting 5. Should be getting 5 a quarter. So that's a big thing. There was some body language issues, but they settled down once Josh started targeting Diggs. And if you extrapolate Josh's statistics from the 2-minute warning of the first half through the rest of the game, he was 14 for 17 in completion percentage and over 170 yards, and he had a touchdown in that time frame. After that, they didn't need to throw the ball anymore. I agree, David. I agree. I think he's a stud too. The elbow
So,
scares me. The elbow scares me.
I see that.
I might be
So
alone in that,
Kevin,
but
real quick,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna answer this. So
Yeah.
Jameson Williams started practicing again. You know, the big receiver pick from last year's
so he's got
draft.
21-day window
So
to be
excited.
activated, right?
Yes, and so
Yeah.
he actually, so technically he could be activated tomorrow. I don't think
that's
he will
awesome.
be.
I
I
don't
think
so
they
either.
want more weeks of practice before he actually sees a football field. But he's gonna play this season, and he's
That's
going to
exciting.
be amazing next season. So I think that this was a great pick. I think Jameson Williams he says he's healthy. I just watched his press conference last night. He's looking good. So David, we're not sure yet. He could be
I've
activated
heard
next
everything
week.
I've heard is December. I've
Yep,
heard
yep,
December.
But he
So
started
it's gonna be-
practicing now, so we'll see.
It's going to be really, really exciting when he comes back, Anthony. Like,
Yeah,
I'm so excited
gonna
for
be
you
good.
guys. Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift. I think that the Lions.
I mean, that's a
future
dream
is bright.
team. If I
Yeah.
had those players on my fantasy team, I'd be like, this is
Yeah.
the best team ever.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm playing Madden, I want these guys on my Madden team.
They're going to
You
develop.
know?
They're going to get good.
It's
Absolutely.
gonna
I
be
couldn't
good.
agree more. Yeah.
So yeah.
and so,
Anyway, back to them Bills.
Yeah, so they stopped needing to to throw the ball in the second half because Devin Singletary and James Cook were getting 5, 6, 7 yards a carry. That's going to be fun to watch. I cannot wait to see how Buffalo's game plan and how they're going to attack this Lions defense because, with all due respect, it seems kind of like pick your poison. It seems kind of like Buffalo will be able to say, this play we want to do this, and this play we want to do this. And other than Aiden Hutchinson, it doesn't really seem like the Lions are going to have much to say about stopping them. So
Yeah.
hopefully Buffalo doesn't stop themselves. That's like Brian was saying, every game Buffalo's lost this year, they beat themselves.
Yeah, it's true.
So
Especially that Miami game. That Miami game was because they were supposed to win that game.
Mind-numbing.
And they could have. And yeah, they
so many
did
missed
beat themselves. I
opportunities.
mean, even Tua wasn't even himself, but the Dolphins defense found a way to just slow the Bills down a little bit. They were confused,
Yeah.
they were lost, so they ended up winning.
Dude, and back-to-back games in Ford Field, given that they've already established their comfort there, I think it's going to be I hope it's fireworks for your
This
sake.
is going to be the difference, though. It is going to be loud in that stadium.
Definitely. Yeah,
the
definitely.
The Bills are going to be lining up on offense in the fourth quarter, 3rd and 12, and it's going to be loud. And
You're
I
right.
think that's going to be a
absolutely
big difference. The home field
Yeah.
advantage is going to be out of the picture, and I think
Yeah.
that's going to have a lot to do with it. It's going to be a different atmosphere.
Yeah.
For
Well,
sure.
I'm really glad we got to talk more about this game because I think it's bias aside, I think this is the game that has the potential to be the most exciting, the most explosive.
I
The
can
other two
agree with
games
that.
are going to be great. They're going to be fun to watch. But I think there's a lot more potential for fireworks in this game than the other two games. So I'm glad we had a chance to talk about it a little bit more. It's our teams. So this is kind of like, this is the water cooler talk between two friends that just happened to be on a podcast. But I do think I'm going to say that I'm ready to ride off into the sunset for my first appearance.
All right. Well, it's been
I had
great.
such a blast, Anthony.
We're 12 minutes from 2 hours. So this
that's a hell of a
long
run,
one.
man. I'm going to send this to everybody I know. I want to make sure that we get some eyes and ears on this awesome podcast. I love the stat-based slant. Having Jimmy here was so fun. Brian's awesome. Brian's really cool, and you're the man, dude. Thank you so much for having me. And like I said,
man. It's really fun.
I will always take an opportunity to talk football. So if you ever want to do this again, please let me know.
We probably want to bring you on 30 Minutes of Football if you ever want to guest on that. So
that'd be really cool.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Everybody in the comments, the Buffalo Trill is the @ on Twitter if you want to be in touch with the football stuff that I do. I mostly do Bills memes, but I'm thinking about expanding a little bit. Me and Anthony. Anthony's a great help in this space, so I'm definitely going to pick your brain a lot, Anthony, about moving forward with this. But I do have a blast doing it, so I'm very much excited to do it again soon.
Cool. All right. Yeah, Pro Football Demon. Feel free to, if you want to join the 11 Yards podcast, let me know. I would love to have guests. We just talk stats. We just talk football. So I would love to have you on.
Pro Football Demon, you're the man. I appreciate all the positive energy. All of you guys were so fun and exciting. So, Anthony, again, can't thank you enough. And I will be in touch. I'll actually probably see you soon, huh?
Yeah, you will. You'll see me soon. I'll see you tomorrow for Thanksgiving.
Right,
So this is Kevin. I'm Anthony. This has been 11 Yards Podcast. I'll see you next Wednesday, guys.